Now, networks don't talk about it. Government can't tax it. But sports betting is a $200 billion a year business.
That's a major U.S. Supreme Court ruling that could open the door for legalized sports betting all across the country.
The Supreme Court is giving the green light for states to determine on their own whether they want to legalize sports gambling.
Tell Donahue his next pick is good for 20 grand, but I need him to guarantee a win, okay? I need a lock.
He's not that fucking good.
No, Tommy, he has to. All right, he has to, or else they're going to kill me. Do you realize this, Tommy? They're going to fucking kill me. I can't afford to gamble anymore. I need a fucking lock.
And welcome in. It is another episode of Lock Talk. You see me hanging out on my own as Joey is a little busy this week. And we're going to get Paulie on the program soon enough. We'll have both the Lock Talk boys going. Welcome in. It is Thursday morning as I'm recording this one. A very snowy, cold, windy Thursday morning in November in Wisconsin. We are in the thick of it. For those of you that have been following, I'm on a MACtion hangover. We had MACtion the last two nights. Went really well. 3-1 over 3 units, almost 3.5 units. It's going to be a very fun segment going forward. So make sure that you're following me on Twitter @_O'Kane __ for all of my previews. And make sure that you're hopping in on the app. On the app, we've got articles right now. We've got all of the plays that are going there. The podcast itself gets posted on there every single week. So definitely got to download Lock Talk. I mentioned it on my Twitter. It is the freest app in the App Store currently at free 99. So very excited, but more excited, I would say, about our college football slate on Saturday. Saturday is going to bring us probably the best slate that we've had in almost a month. It's been a little bit of a boring, time of the year as we get through the dog days of conference play. Last week, only 50 games. This week, we're loaded up. So I'm going to run through some of those. Obviously, I've got all of the NFL that I'm going to go through. And then Joey and I have our lead pipe locks, which Joey last week goes 3-1, ties us up for the lead pipe lock leaderboard. Your boy got skunked. Really, really ugly. But it is what it is. We're going to keep moving along. Let's talk college football. The first game that I want to talk in college, it's an 11 o'clock 11 o'clock kick. I'm almost there for college basketball. We're really close. We're less than a week away. However, Kansas State at Texas. Texas currently laying 4. And again, these totals are Thursday morning, Wednesday night, depending exactly when I put them down here. This is an interesting one. Opened up K-State plus 8.5 as a future line with Quinn Ewers. He is not playing. Malik Murphy, he was okay in the blowout against BYU, but left quite a bit to be desired as he really wasn't super accurate. And, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Not that great when you're playing BYU and you're Texas. To me, we have to see, you got to see Arch this week. Sarkisian said that they just didn't find a rhythm last week. That's going to be very tough. And it's going to be even tougher to find a rhythm this week because Kansas State has as good of a defense as anybody in the country. They've held to Houston and TCU in the last 2 weeks to a combined 3 points. Texas is going to want to run. The Cats, they've allowed under 110 yards per game, which is second best in the conference. I'm going to lean the under. It's hitting 5 of Texas's last 6. It's also hitting 4 of the last 5 of these matchups in Austin. A lot of good defense, some sussy offense. I'm going to lean to the under on that one, but won't be betting. A lot of my college football now, as far as betting goes, are going to be revolved around my futures, which I'll touch on as we have a few of them that go through on this one. Notre Dame and Clemson. This is an interesting game to me. It's the next one that I want to talk about. Notre Dame laying only 3, totals 45.5. Will Shipley's neck is in question. I don't know if he's going to play yet. I would imagine he does. And I may break my promise and bet the Irish. Wins over Pitt and USC have now made the New Year's 6 possible. It's a true statement. There's a lot of carnage going on at the top of the, I don't want to say BCS, but the college football playoff. So I do think that they can sneak in there with a 2-loss team as a New Year's 6. However, they've came up short against the spread just twice in their 9 games. This is a team, although they're not the dominant undefeated, they're covering. They're taking care of business. They're doing a good job doing so. Clemson 1-4 against the spread in their last 5, spiraling a little bit. I would lay the points. Shipley, once he's announced healthy, I think this game is probably going to stay right around that 3-point number. I don't think that he's going to be a huge shift. So for that one, I would lead Notre Dame, but again, just a little bit concerned with how they've played in some big spots, but we will move on. Missouri and Georgia, number 12, Missouri. Mizzou at number 12 is crazy to me. The Dogs, 2-4 against the spread in their last 6, have covered only once in their 5 home games. This program won't bet UGA games anymore. We just can't. We just can't do it. You know, I'd love to say, hey, you should lay the points because the Dogs are really, really good. And the Dogs are really, really good. However, we're really, really bad at picking them. So we're not going to do so. We're actually going to move right along to my return from the dead game of the week. Kansas at Iowa State. The Cyclones were dead after a loss to Ohio, but have since. They've won 4 of 5. They're part of a 5-way tie currently in the Big 12 with just a few weeks to go. After upsetting OU, backup quarterback, Kansas is in a really interesting spot. Absolute electric factory as far as just big plays. They seem to always find, you know, whether it be defense, whether it be offense. They had a long run last week by Beam. It's a very opportunistic team for Kansas against an Iowa State team that is fighting. They're fighting, and I have to say I have to give them a lot of credit. It was a team that we definitely pronounced dead earlier on in the season, but to me, it's a tough one. It's about as tough as it gets. Kansas said that Jalen Daniels is their starter still. So if he comes back healthy, I don't think he's going to be healthy. To me, it's a game that I'm just going to lay off and probably enjoy on Saturday. The Big 12 is going to be an absolute carnage shit show blast down the stretch. 5 teams tied for the conference here as we are in early November. Very, very exciting. Moving on, we're going to stay in the Big 12. Oklahoma at Oklahoma State. This is Bedlam. 5.5-point favorites, Oklahoma. Total is 60.5. I know a lot of gripe for this being a 2:30 game. It's the last time that we're going to see Bedlam in quite some time. However, a 60-point total is very par for the course. OU 7-2-1 against the spread, and State, they're 2-7-1 against the spread in the last 10 against each other. Now, OU this season 6-2 against the spread. However, State has covered 4 straight. This is a really, really good team. I don't have a lot of fun trends on the total. It's 5-5 in the last 10 in these matchups. If you're somebody that likes to bet entertainment, you can bet the over. I probably would lean under in this one. I don't think Oklahoma State really offensively has the horses to keep up with an Oklahoma. And the only way they win this game is if they keep that total low. I think they do that by design, but not going to be betting it myself. Next one, Washington, USC. This is probably everybody's. These next 2 games that we're going to talk about are the 2 games on the radar. Washington laying 3 at USC, 76.5-point total. It's the highest that I have ever, can remember seeing. But to me, the Huskies laying only 3 is crazy. USC should have lost 3 straight. They lucked out against Cal. The Trojans, they failed to cover in 6 straight by an average of 12 points. On the other side, Washington, they haven't covered since September 23rd. To me, the Huskies, the play is Huskies outright. To me, I need Michael Penix over yards. This is going to be me rooting on my Michael Penix feature. I'm not going to take a side in this one. Obviously, it goes a long way with Penix getting the victory, and the USC secondary is bad, so he really needs to carve them up. So that's going to be a big game for me, just not one that I'm betting. The last game of the night that I'm going to look at here, LSU and Bama. LSU catching 3 on the road. And I thought right away, I'm like, man, I really need to bet LSU here, but I can't take myself to fade Nick Saban at home in a huge spot like this. They're number 8 in the country. They're very alive in the SEC. Now, this is one thing I wanted to look at. LSU overs, 10 for their last 10. Bama's 7 for their last 10. However, this total has only gone over 3 times in the last 10 between the two. I'm going to lean LSU in the over, but again, I'm not fading Nick Saban. That's just absolute chaos, and you're asking for a bad, bad evening. So that's going to be it for college football. We'll kind of go back and touch on those when we get to the lead pipe locks. But let's move on into our NFL preview. It is NFL Week 9. Very exciting stuff. I would say this week, the schedule makers didn't do a perfect job, I think is a fair way to assess what we saw. We're going to talk about it in a little bit, but the way that they set this up with only 3 late games and 2 of them being complete dog shit, I don't know exactly how I feel. But let's start in the NFL on Thursday. Titans catching 2.5 at the Steelers, total 36.5. Will Levis appears to be what Steelers fans want Kenny Pickett to be, but it's only been 1 game, so I'm not going to overblow that one. The line feels right. The Steelers have been overachieving. We don't really know what we have with the Will Levis-led Titans. Last week, we probably saw the true black and gold as their offense failed to produce. Their defense kept them in the game. They get a 10-point home loss to Jacksonville. The Steelers' defense and their inconsistent offense, that's a huge reason the under is hit in all but 1 game for them this year. Similar story in Tennessee. All but 2 of their games have gone under. Personally, it's too low of a number for me to bet in prime time. For those who have been watching on Twitter, I've actually been posting EV positive player props on Bet Openly for all the primetime games. Let's just say they're very profitable. So, and you have a bunch of different angles, so it's a very fun way to bet the game. So make sure you're checking out that on Twitter. I'll have that posted later today. This one is going to be very fun. NFL goes to Germany. Dolphins plus 1.5 at the Chiefs, 50.5 point total. It's the best international game that we've seen. We said the same thing against Buffalo and when it was Buffalo and Jacksonville a few weeks ago. This now takes the cake. I don't really have an opinion from a side perspective. I do think Kansas City is going to score. Last week, the Chiefs were held to just 9 points. However, nobody bounces back like Kansas City does. In their previous 2 games this season that they were held under 20, they followed up with their 2 biggest offensive performances, hanging 41 on the Bears, 31 on the Chargers. The Dolphins, they're 25th in scoring defense. They allow north of 25 points per game. I fear betting the game total. The Chiefs defense is 2nd in the league, holding teams to just 16 points per game. And it's only gone over in 2 of their 8 this year. I like the Chiefs team total as long as it stays at 26.5 or better. I think it's 25.5 right now as of Thursday morning. If it gets too high, just take the Chiefs outright. But we're going to have a very, very exciting game. And I wanted to get this next one out of the way just because I'm not going to talk about it a whole lot. Rams are 3-point dogs at the Packers, 38.5 point total. I don't know why Green Bay is favored. We are officially sellers at the deadline, sent away Rasul Douglas for a 3rd-round pick and sent away a 5th-rounder. Yeah, Packers are in a very weird spot right now. 38.5, I will say, seems like a very high total for a team that can't move the football. The Rams seem to have some ineptness. However, if there's a team that is going to break free offensively against the secondary, it's definitely going to be the Green Bay Packers. They're going to need to generate some pressure, but really in a scheme that gets the ball out that quick. Guys like Rashawn Gary are going to be neutralized. It's going to really come down to the secondary. Devondre Campbell, our 2nd level of defense. I don't love where the Packers are headed right now. I'm not going to get too into it. I'm kind of a depressed son of a bitch right now. So let's move to Commanders plus 3.5 at the Patriots. Total in that one, 40.5. Something about old Bill in November. He's 7-1 in his last 8. So I don't think this line stinks quite as much as some people may think it does. It's back-to-back 1-score losses for the Commies. They seem to have flipped a switch, though. You want to talk about going sell mode. My Packers went sell mode. The Commies sold Sweat and Young. So really, you take away your best part of your team, which was your pass rush. I don't like this game a whole lot. Blindly betting Patriot unders did falter by a point last week, so I'm going to give it a rest for now. No lean in that one. Next is Buccaneers plus 2.5 at the Texans. Total is going to be 40. The Texans really let me down last week. I don't quite understand them. It was very, very disappointing. I thought they were going to handle Carolina just fine. And the Bucs are also a mess. I feel so sad for Baker Mayfield. Thought it might actually work, but no. Tampa's lost 4 of 5, averaging under 15 points per game during that stretch. The Texans they'd covered 4 straight. They're bound for a stinker. So I don't hate them bouncing back here. However, the Texans have gone under in 5 of 7, the Bucs in 6 of 7. This total's hovering around 40. I would keep that in mind as we move forward. Next game I want to talk about is an absolute stinker. I won't touch on it too much because Joey's got actually an interesting angle later. Cardinals +8 at the Browns. Total is 37.5. I'm not going to touch on it too much. It's Clayton Tune against Deshaun Watson. We'll talk about it in a little bit. Let's move to Bears +8.5 at the Saints. 41-point total. We get another week of teabag in Chicago. This is going to be a tough front for him. There's no doubt in my mind. The Saints are, even though they're not great, both teams are 2-5-1 against the spread this year. The Saints haven't even covered at home, but the Saints defense is legit. When you look at the trends, Chicago 75% over, the Saints 75% under. The Saints, they've won 7 straight in the series. Can't read into it a lot. I'm going to prop this game up. It's a hard pass as a full-on game. I would lean the under, but I really, really don't care for betting Badgett. Is it Badgett? I think games for Chicago. So we'll move along because this next one is actually, and I'll just go ahead and say it. Joey and I both have this as our underdog of the week. It's Seattle +6 at the Ravens. There's a lot of people jumping on either the Ravens or the Lamar MVP bandwagon. I'm just not quite there yet. We've seen this story before. However, it's hard to ignore 69 points in the past 2 weeks. Very, very solid. Seattle, though, they've won 5 of their last 6. They've failed to reach the number just once. To me, they have about as balanced of an attack as you get in this league. Geno, during that stretch, has thrown for 250 yards per game. Kenneth Walker has climbed now to 6th in the league in rushing. They have as good of an offense as anybody in this league. I promise. I promise you they do. Defensively, their secondary continues to improve. Witherspoon is going to be an absolute legend in this league. They're 100% going to push the Niners in the West. This is going to be one of the better games of the day. Joey and I both like the Seahawks catching 6. That's going to be our underdog of the week. Moving on to Vikings and Falcons. Vikings catching 4.5 as Kirk Cousins is officially out for the season with a torn Achilles. That's unfortunate. And we're seeing more torn Achilles injuries, whether it has to do with turf or not. That's not an argument that I necessarily get into, because being a quarterback, you want to play on turf. So this game is, to me, a culmination of a lot of calling and bitching. Atlanta finally did it. They sat Desmond Ridder down. And now it's going to be Taylor Heineke versus BYU's Jaron Hall. Both of these teams are 4-4. One doesn't exactly feel like the other. Obviously, Minnesota kind of spinning now without Kirk Cousins. Yeah, you traded for Josh Dobbs. Congratulations. Now, if you're the Falcons, you're like, hey, Taylor Heineke came in to the game. We were down 14-3 at half last week against the Texans. Rips off 4 scoring drives in his first 5 attempts. Brings them back to less than a touchdown game. Has 175 passing yards. Scrambled well. Touchdown. No picks. I'm going to talk about the game a little bit later. We'll just talk about that. Let's talk Colts Panthers. Colts laying 2.5 at the Panthers, 44. I'm going to hang this in the Hall of Fame of games that have no business in the 3 o'clock slot. A combined 4-11 record on the Eastern time zone teams. I don't get it. I kind of get it. The schedule makers probably saw AR versus Bryce Young. But instead, it's Minshew magic. And unfortunately, that magic seems to be running out. The Colts, they've lost 4 of 5 after a 2-1 start. It is worth noting Carolina has covered just once this season, so I wouldn't get too excited after beating the Texans. A wild trend that I found, Carolina 11-1 straight up against the AFC South in their last 12. To me, there's no lean. Get it off my screen. It's going to be very, very ugly. And speaking of games, in that Hall of Fame, I'm going to add a second one because the Giants catching 1.5 at the Raiders with a 37-point total also has no reason to be in my 3 o'clock slot. But when you have the Raiders out in Vegas, you don't really have a choice. Josh McDaniels finally out of there. The Raiders continue their trend of paying guys that don't actually work for them. The Giants revived themselves with a win over Washington 2 weeks ago, and then they wash it out with an ugly 13-10 loss against the Jets. However, Daniel Jones is back. They say he's 100% healthy. Should help this offense get closer to what we think they can be in their peak. The Raiders are going to start Aiden O'Connell moving forward, for better or for worse. Still don't think he's the guy. He is a guy that could win them games if they're not supposed to. His weapons are still really good. Asking for points out of this Giants offense feels like pulling teeth, but Vegas allowed 30 to Teabag in Chicago 2 weeks ago. And if you watch the Detroit game, although they only gave up 26, that easily could have been 40. Watch that low total as we creep into Sunday. I may dabble. I can't believe I'm saying it. I may dabble in that Giants-Raiders over. We'll see how that goes. Moving on to our last game of Sunday afternoon, a beautiful palate cleanser. The Cowboys are catching 3 at the Eagles. Total is 47. Feels like a game that should be played on Sunday night, but not going to step on toes because we'll talk about that matchup in a minute. Believe it or not, and I was surprised by this, Dallas has won and covered in 7 of the last 10 in this rivalry. They've actually covered 4 of the last 5 matchups. Hell, their offense is averaging a hair under 30 points per game during that 10-game stretch. When it comes to Philly, Dallas just seems to come correct. On the other side, the Eagles, they've been goofy the last 5 weeks. Nearly lost to Washington twice. They lose to the Jets, sprinkled in a dominant win over Miami. To me, you got to look total. This matchup's gone over in 5 straight, 7 of the past 8. It's on the lower end of what we normally see with this number. Great weather on Sunday, points on both sides. Yeah, I think I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Bills +2 on Sunday night at the Bengals, 49.5 point total. The DeMar Hamlin game. I don't know if he's going to be active or not. Would not be super surprised if we see something about him. Like I said, tough to bitch when this is our nightcap. Let's start with the Bengals. They were dead going into week 5, 1-3. They have covered 3 straight by an average of 11 points per game. Completely climb out of the hole. It seems like whatever cobwebs they were dealing with are gone defensively as well because they're locking shit down. After the Titans hung 37 on them in week 5, they're allowing just 17 points per game. Buffalo, on the other hand, can't seem to find favor with Vegas in the line. In the past 4 weeks, we've seen lines of 10, 7.5, 15.5, and 5.5. They lost 2 of them outright, didn't come close, failing to cover all 4 by an average of nearly double digits. I don't have a lean quite yet. If you twisted my arm, I'd probably say Bengals at home. They're hot. I don't know what the Bills are at this moment, but I'm going to kind of wait that one out and see where we're at come Sunday night. Now, come Monday night, we are going to be betting props again, so I don't really have to worry about much, but I do kind of like the under in this one. Chargers laying 3.5 at the Jets. Total is 40. I'm not going to buy into the Jets hype. I won't do it. 3 straight wins. I'm sure it feels like an absolute fever dream, Jets fans. Aaron Rodgers coming back. Season very much saved. But again, I'm looking to bet the under. It's hitting 5 straight games for LA. Their defense finally catching up to their offense as long as they don't play Kansas City. And the Jets are just under merchants. They've gone under in 9 of their past 12 dating back to last season, under in 5 of their past 6 at home, and 9 of their last 11 versus the AFC. It's also worth noting 5 of the past 6 Chargers Monday Night Football games have gone under. It's always, always, always a public overfest for the Chargers. Now, the Jets may change that, but for me, I'm going to hawk the under on anything and then look at some props as well. Now, that is everything. We actually did a pretty decent job running through those at a decent pace. We're going to get this thing done in about 30 minutes. Let's get the lead out. Joey went 3-1 last week. We are now both 500 on the lead pipe locks for the season, locked in at 3-3. Joey's got 4. Let's start with Joey's favorite. His favorite. Interesting one. A game that we did not cover. I like it, though. Joey has Kentucky. The Kentucky Wildcats laying 4 in this one. I like it. I like Joey's pick here. I will say, and I'm trying to pull up the stats. I just saw it. Whoops. Got Mac only in my filter. I got to get back to the top 25 here. Where did it go? Because there was a really good... I may have lost it. Well, regardless, I had one up for him, but Joey's going to lay 14 with Kentucky this weekend. I do like this pick. Kentucky, a team that I have bet on this season, have not been able to really pick them at the right times all the time. But this week against the Mississippi State team that I don't think is very, very good, it should be a nice spot to lay 4. It's actually down to 3.5. So we're going to give Joey 3.5 as it is down to technically 3.5 as of this morning. Now talking about favorite dog, we talked about this already. The Seahawks +6 are going to be Joey's favorite dog. His total, we're going to the SEC, Arkansas and Florida. Joey loves SEC overs. He's a little slut for those, and I agree with him. I agree with him. Arkansas, Florida. Florida seems to continue to put up points. Arkansas's offense has come around. KJ Jefferson is starting to look like the player we thought he was. Don't hate the look for Joey's total there. His lead pipe lock rocks. He just told me Cardinals under. He doesn't care what the number is. And shopping it around, it's 13.5 or 14.5. So we're going to give Joey Cardinals under 14 this weekend as they play the Browns. Yeah, this is going to be a very, very funny game to me, in my opinion. I don't know what we're going to see out of Clayton Tune. It may get really, really ugly. I don't foresee things working out in his favor, but hey, I really hope for the kid. Maybe it works out, but Joey is fading him, and I don't think it's a bad spot. Looking at my favorite, I like the Atlanta Falcons laying 4.5 this weekend. Like I said, I think they turned a little bit of a corner here, especially allowing Taylor Heineke to take over at quarterback. Big moves. Big moves, to say the least. I love them here. This is a matchup where the Vikings are it's a bad spot. It's a really bad spot. You don't know what the hell you have with Jaren Hall. Excuse me. Things could be super, super ugly. So for me, I like Atlanta laying 4.5. Like I said, we like Seattle as the dog +6. My total is going to be that Dallas-Philly over 47. I like over 47 in the Dallas and Philadelphia game on Sunday. Mentioned some of the trends that point towards the over in that one. And my lead pipe lock is going to be Germany on Sunday morning. I like the Kansas City Chiefs over 25.5. Now, 25.5, I would play it up to 26.5. Once it touches 27, I start getting leery. Like I said, I just expect them to score points. Miami has been very inconsistent defensively. We've seen this. Kansas City seems to kind of lay the pipe when it comes to the offense. So run through it again. Kansas City over 25.5. My lead pipe. Dallas, Philly over 47. Both of us are on the Seahawks +6. I've got Atlanta -4.5. Joey's laying 3.5 with Kentucky, Arkansas, Florida over 50.5. And his lead pipe lock, Cardinals under 14 is what we're giving the lad. Thank you all for listening. That was a quick one, little 30-minute episode this week with Joey out. But that's good. Efficiency is good. We'll talk to you guys next week. Should be a very fun week of MACtion. We're going to have 3 games on Tuesday, 3 games on Wednesday. So make sure you bring your bourbon because it's going to be a blast. Thank you guys for listening. We'll talk to you later.